What happens when a beloved Hollywood icon sits down for what should be a lighthearted late-night interview, only to find herself blindsided by questions that cross every professional boundary? The tension in the studio became so unbearable that cameras kept rolling as one of America's most famous actresses made a decision that stunned everyone in the room. Before we get into what went down, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling us what you think about this whole situation. Now, let's break down exactly what happened that night. The evening started like any other taping of the show. The audience was buzzing with excitement. The band was playing, and Stephen Colbert walked out to his usual thunderous applause. He went through his monologue, hitting his typical jokes about politics and current events, getting solid laughs from the crowd. Everything seemed perfectly normal. Then he introduced his guest, Jennifer Aniston, and the audience erupted. She walked out in an elegant black dress, smiling and waving, and took her seat across from Stephen. They exchanged pleasantries, and for the first few minutes, everything was going smoothly. Stephen started with the expected questions. He asked about her latest project, a streaming series she had been promoting heavily. Jennifer was animated and enthusiastic, sharing behind-the-scenes stories and talking about working with the cast. The audience was engaged, laughing at her anecdotes. Stephen seemed relaxed, leaning back in his chair with his usual quick wit. They talked about her character, the challenges of the role, and some funny moments from filming. Jennifer mentioned how demanding the shooting schedule had been, but how rewarding the final product turned out to be. Stephen nodded along, occasionally interjecting with jokes that landed well. Then something shifted. Stephen's demeanor changed slightly as he glanced down at his cards. He looked back up at Jennifer with a different expression, something more serious, more probing. He cleared his throat and said, "So Jennifer, I want to ask you about something that's been circulating online. There have been some comments from people in the industry, people who've worked with you, suggesting that you can be difficult on set. How do you respond to that?" The audience went quiet. You could feel the temperature in the room drop. Jennifer's smile faded just a bit, though she tried to maintain her composure. She laughed, but it was a different kind of laugh, one that had an edge to it. "I think that's a pretty loaded question, Stephen," she said, her voice steady but with a hint of steel underneath. "I've been working in this industry for over 3 decades. If I have standards and I speak up when something isn't right, that doesn't make me difficult. That makes me professional." Stephen nodded, but he didn't back off. He leaned forward slightly and said, "But there are specific instances that people have mentioned. There was that situation on the set of your show a few years back, where a crew member alleged that you had them removed because of a disagreement." Jennifer's jaw tightened. The cameras caught every micro-expression on her face. "That's not what happened, and you know it," she replied, her tone becoming firmer. "That crew member was creating an unsafe work environment for multiple people, not just me. It was addressed through the proper channels, and it had nothing to do with a personal disagreement. I'm surprised you're bringing this up like it's some kind of scandal." Stephen held up his hands in a gesture that seemed meant to be placating, but came across as dismissive. "I'm just asking the questions that people are curious about," he said. "You're a public figure, and these stories get attention. Don't you think your fans deserve to hear your side?" Jennifer stared at him for a moment, and you could see her processing whether to engage or shut it down. "My fans," she said slowly, "have always been supportive because they know who I am. They've watched me grow in this career, and they've seen my work. I don't think they need me to defend myself against anonymous internet rumors that you've decided to elevate on national television." The audience was dead silent now. A few people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Stephen pressed on, seemingly committed to this line of questioning despite the obvious tension. "Look, I'm not trying to attack you," he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "But there's been a broader conversation happening about power dynamics in Hollywood, about how stars treat the people around them. You have to admit that your name has come up in those discussions." Jennifer's face hardened. "My name has come up," she said, "because people love to tear down women who have been successful for a long time. It's a pattern, Stephen, and I'm frankly disappointed that you're participating in it right now." "That's not fair," Stephen shot back, his own frustration starting to show. "I've had plenty of powerful women on this show, and I've never treated them this way. I'm asking you these questions because they're relevant, not because of your gender." Jennifer let out a short, humorless laugh. "You're asking me these questions because you think it'll get you clicks and views," she said. "You're not interested in a real conversation. You want a moment, and you're willing to ambush me to get it." Did your producers tell you to go this route, or was this your own idea? Stephen's expression shifted. He looked genuinely taken aback by her directness. The audience was so quiet, you could hear the hum of the studio lights. This isn't an ambush, he insisted. These are questions based on real reports, real stories from people who've worked in the industry. If they're not true, then say they're not true, but don't act like I'm out of line for asking. Jennifer shook her head slowly. You're absolutely out of line, she said. You invited me here to talk about my work, to talk about the show I'm promoting, and instead you're sitting here trying to paint me as some kind of diva based on gossip and unnamed sources. Stephen leaned back, clearly trying to regain control of the situation. I think you're being overly sensitive, he said. And the moment those words left his mouth, you could see Jennifer's entire body language change. Overly sensitive, she repeated, her voice low and controlled. That's interesting. So when a man stands up for himself, he's assertive. When a woman does it, she's overly sensitive. Is that where we're at right now? Stephen started to respond, but Jennifer wasn't finished. She was on a roll now, her voice gaining strength. I came here tonight in good faith, she continued. I've done this show before. We've had great conversations, and I thought tonight would be the same. Instead, you've decided to use your platform to perpetuate the same tired narratives that women in my position have been fighting against for years. And now you're telling me I'm being too sensitive about it? Do you not see the irony in that? The audience remained frozen, unsure whether to react or stay quiet. Stephen's face was flushed now, and he seemed to be struggling with how to respond. He opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. I didn't mean it like that, he said, his voice lacking the confidence it had earlier. I'm just saying that maybe you're reading too much into my questions. They're not as deep as you're making them. Jennifer stared at him for a long moment, and in that silence, you could feel the weight of everything that had just been said hanging in the air between them. The cameras continued to roll, capturing every second of this unprecedented exchange. Jennifer took a slow breath, her eyes never leaving Stephen's face. You know what the problem is? She said quietly. And somehow, her lowered voice made the moment even more intense than if she had raised it. The problem is that you think you can ask me anything, frame it however you want, and then when I push back, you make it about me overreacting. That's not journalism, Stephen. That's just lazy. Stephen shifted in his seat, visibly uncomfortable now. The confidence he had carried throughout the beginning of the interview had evaporated. He tried to inject some levity into the moment, forcing a smile. Come on, Jennifer. Let's not make this bigger than it needs to be, he said. We can move on, talk about something else. But Jennifer wasn't interested in giving him an easy out. She leaned forward slightly, her posture commanding attention. No, I don't think we should just move on, she said. I think we need to talk about why you thought this was appropriate in the first place. You have a responsibility with this platform, and you just used it to try to embarrass me on national television. Why? What did you hope to accomplish? Stephen's smile faded. He glanced toward his producers off camera, as if looking for guidance, but none came. He was on his own, and everyone in the studio knew it. I was doing my job, he said, his voice taking on a defensive edge. My job is to ask questions that people are talking about. If you don't like the questions, that's one thing, but don't question my integrity as a journalist. Jennifer's eyebrows shot up. Your integrity as a journalist, she repeated. Stephen, you just admitted you were asking questions to get attention. Those were your words, not mine. So which is it? Are you a journalist pursuing truth, or are you a host chasing viral moments? The audience let out a collective intake of breath. Someone in the back coughed, and it echoed through the otherwise silent studio. Stephen's face was growing redder by the second. Look, he said, his voice rising slightly, you're twisting my words now. I never said I was doing this for attention. I said these are questions people are curious about. There's a difference. Jennifer nodded slowly, as if considering his point, but her expression remained skeptical. Then let me ask you something. Did you reach out to any of these so-called sources before you brought this up? Did you verify these stories? Did you contact my publicist or my team to get any context? Or did you just see something online and decide it would make for good television? Stephen hesitated, and that hesitation told Jennifer everything she needed to know. His mouth opened, but no words came out immediately. Finally, he said, We did our research. Our team looked into the stories that have been circulating. That's not what I asked, Jennifer interrupted, her voice sharp. I asked if you verified them. I asked if you reached out for context. Research can mean a lot of things, Stephen. It can mean you Googled my name and read some gossip blogs. That's not verification. That's not responsible. Stephen's frustration was now fully visible. He set down his cards with more force than necessary. You know what, Jennifer? He said, his professional facade crumbling. Maybe the reason these stories keep coming up is because there's some truth to them. Maybe instead of attacking me for asking about them, you should consider why they exist in the first place. The studio went so quiet, you could have heard a pin drop. Jennifer stared at him, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then something changed in her eyes. It wasn't anger anymore. It was disappointment. That's really what you think, she said softly. You actually believe that where there's smoke, there must be fire, even though you haven't verified anything. Even though you're relying on anonymous sources and internet gossip, you've already decided, I'm guilty of something. I didn't say that, Stephen protested, but his voice lacked conviction. You kind of did, though, Jennifer replied. You just said maybe there's truth to these stories. Based on what? What evidence do you have? What sources have you spoken to directly? Stephen looked trapped. He glanced at his notes again, then back at Jennifer. The stories have been reported by multiple outlets, he said weakly. That means something. It means that gossip spreads, Jennifer countered. It means that one tabloid publishes something, and then 10 others repeat it without doing their own investigation. That's how this works, and you know it. You've been in media long enough to understand the difference between reporting and rumor-mongering. So I'll ask you again, do you have any verified information, or are you just repeating what you read? Stephen's jaw clenched. He seemed to be weighing his options, trying to figure out how to regain control of an interview that had completely gotten away from him. I have sources, he said finally, his voice tight. I can't reveal them, but yes, I have sources who have told our team about incidents involving you on various sets. Jennifer's eyes narrowed. Unnamed sources, she said. Anonymous sources who conveniently can't be verified or questioned. How convenient. Stephen, that's not evidence. That's hearsay at best. And the fact that you're using it to ambush me during what was supposed to be a promotional interview is honestly beneath you. I'm not ambushing you, Stephen insisted, though his tone suggested even he didn't fully believe it anymore. I'm having a conversation. This is what late-night hosts do. We talk about things that are happening, things people are discussing. Jennifer shook her head. No, what late-night hosts do is create a space where their guests feel comfortable and respected. They have fun conversations. They promote projects. They make people laugh. What you're doing right now is trying to create controversy where none exists, and you're doing it at my expense. So I should just let you come on here and control the entire narrative, he said. I should just ask you softy questions and let you promote your show without any pushback. Is that what you want? Jennifer let out an exasperated breath. Pushback about what, Stephen? What exactly are you pushing back against? I came here to talk about my work. I didn't come here to defend myself against baseless accusations from people who won't even put their names on the record. If you wanted to have a serious conversation about working conditions in Hollywood or power dynamics in the industry, we could have had that conversation. But that's not what you're doing. You're using vague, unverified claims to put me on the defensive, and then you're acting like I'm being unreasonable for not playing along. The audience was completely transfixed now. Some people looked uncomfortable, others looked riveted, but no one was looking away. This had gone so far beyond a typical talk show interview that it felt more like a public confrontation, raw and unfiltered. Stephen seemed to realize that he had lost this battle, but his pride wouldn't let him back down completely. Fine, he said, his voice cold. If you don't want to answer the questions, then don't, but don't expect me to pretend like these stories don't exist. Just because they make you uncomfortable, they don't make me uncomfortable. Jennifer said, her voice steady and strong. What makes me uncomfortable is sitting across from someone that I thought was a professional and realizing that he's more interested in cheap shots than real conversation. What makes me uncomfortable is knowing that millions of people are going to watch this, and some of them are going to believe that there must be something wrong with me because you kept pushing this narrative. That's what makes me uncomfortable. Stephen opened his mouth to respond, but Jennifer held up her hand, stopping him. Actually, you know what, she said, her voice calm but resolute. I don't think I need to sit here and continue this. You've made it clear what kind of interview this is going to be, and I'm not interested in participating anymore. The audience gasped audibly. Stephen's eyes widened in genuine shock. "Wait, what are you saying?" he asked, leaning forward in his chair. "I'm saying I'm done," Jennifer replied simply. She began to remove her microphone, her hands steady despite the magnitude of what she was doing. Stephen looked panicked now, glancing between Jennifer and the cameras and his producers, who were undoubtedly freaking out off stage. "Jennifer, come on," he said, his voice taking on a pleading quality that hadn't been there before. "Let's just take a breath here. We can reset, talk about your show, end this on a good note." Jennifer paused, the microphone pack halfway out of her dress. She looked at Stephen with an expression that was equal parts sadness and resolve. "You had your chance to do that," she said. "Multiple chances, actually, but you kept pushing. You kept trying to make this into something it wasn't supposed to be. So no, I don't think we need to reset. I think I need to leave." Stephen stood up from his desk, something hosts rarely do in the middle of an interview. "Jennifer, please," he said, and there was genuine desperation in his voice now. "I apologize if I crossed a line. Let's sit back down and finish this properly." Jennifer finished removing her microphone and set it carefully on the chair. She looked at Stephen for a long moment, and when she spoke, her voice was quieter but no less powerful. "You didn't cross a line, Stephen. You demolished it. And your apology right now, it's not because you realize you were wrong. It's because you're realizing how bad this looks. There's a difference." She turned to face the audience, and you could see some of them had tears in their eyes. Moved by the raw honesty of what they were witnessing, Stephen seemed frozen, unsure what to do. His hands were spread in a gesture of helplessness. "We're live," he said, as if that fact alone should make her reconsider. "We're in the middle of a broadcast." Jennifer turned back to him with a sad smile. "I know exactly where we are," she said, "and that's precisely why I need to leave. Because if I stay, I'm telling myself and every other woman watching that it's okay to sit there and take it when someone disrespects you publicly. I'm not willing to send that message." The studio was in chaos now, though it was a quiet, stunned kind of chaos. Camera operators weren't sure where to point their equipment. The audience sat in shocked silence. The band members looked at each other with wide eyes. Stephen ran a hand through his hair, his carefully constructed host persona completely shattered. "This is ridiculous," he said, and his choice of words seemed to reignite something in Jennifer. "Ridiculous," she repeated, her voice sharp again. "What's ridiculous is that you thought you could treat me this way. What's ridiculous is that your team apparently thought this was a good idea. What's ridiculous is that I have to be the one to walk away instead of you being the one to recognize how inappropriate this entire situation has been." Stephen's face flushed again. "You're making a huge deal out of nothing," he said, his frustration returning. "I asked you some tough questions. That's literally my job." "Your job is to entertain and inform," Jennifer shot back. "Not to ambush your guests with unverified gossip. Not to try to humiliate people who trusted you enough to come on your show. And definitely not to dismiss their concerns as being overly sensitive when they call you out on it." Stephen looked like he wanted to argue further, but something in Jennifer's expression stopped him. She had made up her mind, and nothing he said was going to change it. "I'm sorry you feel that way," he said finally, and even that sounded defensive rather than genuine. Jennifer let out a short laugh. "You're sorry I feel this way," she said. "Not sorry for what you did, but sorry that I'm reacting to it." "That's perfect, Stephen. That really is the perfect ending to this disaster of an interview." She turned and began walking toward the exit. Stephen called after her, his voice echoing through the studio. "Jennifer, wait," he said. Can we just talk about this off camera for a second?" Jennifer stopped and turned back one last time. "No, Stephen," she said firmly. "You wanted to do this on camera, so we did it on camera. You don't get to suddenly want privacy now that it's not going your way. That's not how this works." With that, she continued walking. The cameras followed her as she made her way across the stage. You could see her heels clicking on the floor, hear the swish of her dress as she moved. The audience watched in stunned silence, some with their hands over their mouths. Others, whispering to the people next to them. Stephen stood frozen at his desk, his face a mixture of shock, anger, and what might have been embarrassment. He looked at the cameras, then at his audience, clearly trying to figure out how to salvage the situation. The awkwardness was palpable, the kind of television moment that people would be talking about for years. Jennifer reached the exit and pushed through the door without looking back. The sound of the door closing echoed through the studio like a final punctuation mark on the entire encounter. For a moment, nobody moved. Stephen remained standing at his desk, his mouth slightly open, as if he was still trying to find words that wouldn't come. The audience sat in their seats, unsure if they should react or remain silent. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of the aftermath. Finally, Stephen seemed to remember where he was. He cleared his throat and looked directly at the camera. "Well," he said, his voice unsteady, that was unexpected." The audience offered a few nervous laughs, but they were hollow and uncomfortable. "We're going to take a quick break." Stephen continued, running his hand through his hair again. "When we come back," he paused, clearly realizing he had no other guests lined up. We'll figure something out." He tried to smile, but it came across as more of a grimace. The show cut to commercial, but the damage was done. What was supposed to be a standard promotional interview had turned into one of the most dramatic moments in late-night television history. The tension in that studio, the raw emotion, the complete breakdown of the typical host-guest dynamic. It was unlike anything viewers had ever seen before. Jennifer Aniston had made a choice in that moment, a choice to stand up for herself even when it meant walking away from a live broadcast. Stephen Colbert had pushed too hard, relied on questionable sources, and found himself on the wrong end of a confrontation he clearly wasn't prepared for. The dialogue between them revealed something deeper than just a disagreement. It exposed the fault lines that exist in how we treat successful women, how we consume gossip as fact, and how power dynamics play out even in seemingly friendly settings. What do you think about how Jennifer handled this situation? Was she right to walk off? Or should she have stayed and finished the interview? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And make sure you hit that subscribe button because we're going to keep breaking down the biggest moments in entertainment. Let us know what you think, and we'll see you in the next one.